people see Trump's victims as just victims, you know, trans people, like non-binary people like me, and Middle Eastern immigrants. And I think what's so great about drag is that it's really powerful and strong and humorous, and it's a really galvanized image. And I think it's a really powerful way to show people that we're not, you know, scared of Trump, or we're not kind of scared of fascism, that actually we are stronger than everybody else. Because I think people often just think of us as victims, but I think drag is a really powerful way to show everyone that we're just really in charge of who we are. It was a very, very confusing time because I was living in a country that was sort of bombing my parents' country, and we were calling my grandmother and hearing the bombs. Being a person of Muslim heritage in the West is just quite tricky. And there's this often, whenever I critique the West, a lot of people say, well, just go back to your country of origin. And it's like, well, I can't really go there because A, you've made it so dangerous, but also it's not that safe to be queer in the Middle East. And I really do understand that. And I know how lucky I am in a way to be in the West, but also it's now becoming not that safe to be a person of color in the West. So you're kind of in this in-between space where you're sort of too queer to really live safely, where you might be accepted as a person of color, but then too, you know, racially kind of, you know, you're being too ethnic in a way to exist in like this secular place. And, you know, I've experienced a lot of racism in the gay community, Islamophobia in the gay community. What I find so devastating, especially as someone Iraqi and of Muslim heritage, is that, you know, both the UK and America have been responsible in causing the destruction of Iraq. You know, my family were there during the war, and now we're the enemy of those nations. And I find that to be present really here and to be present really there, in terms of the attitude towards immigrants as the root of their problems, when in fact the West has been the root of our problems, and we're now coming to the West for safety. I think what a lot of Trump supporters feel is that white people have power, straight people have power, that they're the ones in power. And I think drag is an amazingly visual and just sudden way to reformulate what you think of as powerful. As in, people often say that, wow, I would never think to see a kind of a queer Iraqi Muslim to be so confident or to be so in charge of who they are, to undermine white people. I mean, I love doing that in my shows and really showing people kind of where their white guilt lies. And I think it's really important, especially in this climate, to really show people what power actually means. I expect to see just a lot of defiance, a lot of diversity, and I also think a real collective response to saying we're not gonna be following this far-right turn. I think, especially doing it here in the UK, it's also telling our own government that we do not support the nationalism that's happening on, you know, the Brexit side. We do not support far right in Europe. We do not support the treatment. I mean, the UK, like, the immigration limits are so low. So I think, you know, there's a real, we're showing a real parallel with what's happening in the US. It's not just we hate Trump, it's we hate Trumpism. And it's kind of sister fascism all over Europe. One almost got the feeling that when it was all happening was that he would be in charge and then everything would crumble. And what I've actually seen happen is that he's come into power, so have the far right in lots of places, and subculturally the energy has been incredibly potent, and the number of people that have become politicized and have actually become more vocal. So it's almost as if, like, yes, it's terrible that he's in power, but there's this sort of incredible reaction towards him, which means that him being in power is, I think, also going to start deprivileging him, in my opinion.